don't know if you know, but detransitioning doesn't really work all that well for most people. So when you go on hormones, you start getting the second puberty. You know, I started off the last episode by just saying, say Florida, and then just kind of fill in the blanks on whatever the hell you want, and you'll probably kind of sort of come stumbling drunkenly into whatever Florida's doing because your fanfic is probably close to reality. But I wasn't aware that a bill that would legalize kidnapping trans kids was a thing that I would have to read about today. But I guess that's what we have on the docket today. So let's get into the fan art section, and then we'll get into more Florida, everybody. First piece of fan art we have here is from Pernia, Sonic Onesie Stream When. Yes, this has already been commissioned as a model. Yes, I'm tired. So are you. Don't even try to deny it. The next one we have here is from Failed, made a little sketch of a tiny slime Suris. I'm new to the Discord as well. Well, Failed, I appreciate the piece of fan art. It looks really adorable, and I hope that the rabid curses that are flying everywhere in this Discord do not destroy your mental psyche. And as always, everybody, thank you all for the fan art submissions. Hit the like button if you haven't already, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's go ahead and get right into the topic. Let's get into today's conversation about it's about that thing I said. Oh boy, that topic sounded ugly. Kind of glad I was in the shower. A new bill could legalize kidnapping trans kids by their parents. A new bill in Florida could let parents take their child from their other parent or across state lines if the child is receiving any gender-affirming care. A newly introduced bill in Florida could let parents kidnap their children and bring them across lines if the parent believes the children is receiving gender-affirming care, or even if the child is simply at risk of getting that care. A court may not treat a parent's removal of a child from another parent or from another state as unjustifiable conduct or child abuse, reads the bill. It was introduced Friday by Republican State Senator Clay Yarborough. Oh boy. I'm going to be tired by the time we're done here, and it's only a few paragraphs. At risk includes if their sibling or parent is trans, so, yeah. The bill would also let any court step in to determine custody if a child is gender-affirming or getting gender-affirming health care. And it would block any public agency from spending money on gender-affirming care, leaving people who depend on the government for help affording their care to fend for themselves. Yeah, I don't know how many times we have to say it doesn't stop at kids. It never was supposed to stop at kids. It's always going to be about other people. And yeah, Amy, I know you mentioned the kidnapping thing once before, so I figured this is probably going to be a bit of a hard topic for you, and I apologize for that. We're going to get through it as quickly as we can so that we can rip that Band-Aid off and go play video games like sane people. So that a transphobic parent could kidnap their trans child in violation of custody agreements and abscond to Florida and then be protected by Florida law under this, despite likely committing felony kidnapping in their home state. Alejandra Caraballo, a clinical instructor at Harvard Law School Cyber Law Clinic, tweeted that of the bill. Speaking of all bills targeting trans folks now swirling through Florida's state legislature, Caraballo added, "This is a full elimination of recognition and a limitation of access to care for all trans people, including adults. Again, it never was supposed to stop at kids. Kids are the scapegoat. All trans people are the target." I don't know how many times we have to say this. Fucking hell. The bill is only the latest volley in the nationwide battle over the rights of trans and non-binary children. So far, at least 5 states have banned providers from offering gender-affirming care to minors, even if their parents support it. 3 of those states, Mississippi, Utah, and South Dakota, have passed these bans in the last month. Meanwhile, federal courts have blocked these laws from taking effect in Arkansas and in Alabama. The South Dakota law would also force trans youth to detransition because it only lets doctors who treat trans youth have 1 year to stop providing gender-affirming care. I don't know if you know, but Detransitioning doesn't really work all that well for most people. So when you go on hormones, you start getting the second puberty, right? And the second puberty, while in the early stages can be reversible, we're talking the first 2, 3, 4, 5 months, around the time you start developing things like breasts, or your vocals start to change, or, well, a lot of other things. Around the time that shit starts happening, you can't really reverse it that way anymore. You can lower the effects of things by no longer introducing that hormone to your body, but it's not the same thing as a full-on detransition. So just letting you know that making people detransition, it's not going to suddenly fix everything. It's not going... I'm sorry. Opposition to trans and non-binary youth's right to care is now a common tactic in the GOP playbook. Yeah, because, again, fucking CRT failed as a talking point, and then before that, gay marriage failed as a talking point, so now we got to target trans people. I wonder who the target's going to be after that, though this one seems to be working quite well. In 2022, Republican candidates and anti-LGBTQ groups spent upwards of $50 million on ads that primarily target trans youth, according to research by the Human Rights Campaign. $50 million fucking dollars. You know what we could do with $50 million? Do you know how many lives we can change for the positive with $50 million that is instead being fed on a hate-filled propaganda machine? Trans and non-binary children already face staggering rates of depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation, but letting them use puberty blockers, hormones, and gender-affirming surgeries have all been linked to improving their mental health. Wii U, there's even a thing that we can click that takes us there to an actual fucking study! Holy shit, it's not even citing anything, it's literally another study with 176,000 views, 27 citations that we can look through. Holy shit. It is just wonderful. It is just wonderful to see all of that. Amy says, I wish I knew what puberty blockers were back then. I can understand that. But you know what? You're 6 months on HRT now. Honestly, I think you are going to have a wonderful gender journey. Trans and non-binary children already face staggering rates of depression. We already got the thing there. There are all forms of healthcare that would lead kids kidnapping to be justified under this new Florida bill. Boy, howdy. Boy, fucking howdy. So, not only is this monstrous, not only is this literally letting a parent who is bigoted just make it to where when the minute the child is comfortable coming out of the closet, they can then rip that child away from an affirming household and then beat the straight back into them, or beat the cis back into them, or whatever the fuck they plan on doing. This also includes making it to where adults have a harder time keeping their gender-affirming care. And this is in Florida. This is in fucking Florida. It means this is the shit that Nova's going to be dealing with, which is just fucking fan. Why do people think this is okay? Why do people get onto this train of like, oh, there's a minority group and I don't like them, but instead of letting them live and let live, they decide that they are going to make them a pawn in a big political game? I don't understand what the benefit to that is to an individual person. I don't understand the mentality to use people in this way. I don't know how these types of people sleep at night knowing the damage that they're doing. Maybe it's because they ignore the damage that they're doing. Maybe it's because they do everything in their power to pretend that's not the case. Or maybe they have a mentality that is so hyper-utilitarian that they are willing to just accept any casualties as long as the casualties are not them and it can lead to them having financial and political gain. I don't know. I don't know this type of person, and I hope I never know this type of person. I hope this type of individual never graces my psyche in such a way that I can ever sit down and go, ah, yes, I understand where you're coming from. And while I disagree, I think what you're doing is valid. I hope I never, ever come to that level of personal understanding. Now, I know that sounds weird because I'm an advocate for talking to people of different political ideologies, and I'm an advocate for sitting down and talking with people who you may disagree with, and hell, even may want you to have bad things happen to you. figuring out where that's coming from so that you can better figure out how to change their mind on that topic, because I think that makes us have a more functional world. But there are two types of people that I do not count in that conversation. There are two types of people I will probably never count in that conversation, and they are politicians and pundits. I will never count a pundit in that conversation because they have financial gain to look forward to when they indulge in their bigotries, and I don't need to worry about politicians because they have political gain, which can translate into financial gain when they indulge in their bigotries. All I can say is, if you're a trans person in Florida and you are old enough to vote, you should maybe be doing so more often, and as often as you possibly can. And in local elections, not just the presidential ones. Because this is what happens when your local Senate, this is what happens when your House of Representatives do not have your best interests at heart. So make them fear for their jobs. And remember, protest is also an option. I'm not saying how you should protest. I'm just saying once upon a time, there were protests that people did that, well, they made people very uncomfortable. And then there were protests that people did that made people very quiet. Sometimes they involved bricks. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm never going to do that. Other than vote. Please vote. But I am saying that when you, as an idiot politician, push minority groups into a particular side of things, then there is only one option you start leaving people with, and that option sometimes is violence. And that's an uncomfortable thought, but it's a bed that you largely start making for yourself. And it may suck, but my sympathy can't really extend that far when you are causing this much damage to someone. My sympathy for the damage that a victim does to their abuser cannot stretch very far. It simply does not. But let me know what you think in the comments section below. Hit the like button if you haven't already, and I am emotionally tired, and I am ready to go do something fun and not involving racking my brain on any of this. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, everybody, insert in the video tagline here.